there were a number of widows who built the champagne houses, which were at their time France's top luxury brands. Veuve Clicquot was 28 years old when she lost her husband to the Spanish flu. During the Napoleonic blockades, she managed to get one ship through with her sparkling wine into the court of Russia to celebrate the birth of the new Tsar. And that's how fashions were set. They were drinking it in the court, then everybody wanted to drink it. And so her wines became a hit in Russia.
Do you have a thirst to learn about wine? Do you love stories about wonderfully obsessive people, hauntingly beautiful places, and amusingly awkward social situations? Well, that's the blend here on the Unreserved Wine Talk podcast. I'm your host, Natalie McLean, and each week I share with you unfiltered conversations with celebrities in the wine world, as well as confessions from my own tipsy journey as I write my third book on this subject. I'm so glad you're here. Now pass me that bottle, please, and let's get started. Welcome to episode 129. Are wines that cost hundreds of dollars per bottle ever worth the price? Does deepening your understanding of wine increase your enjoyment of it? Who were the young widows who built the famous champagne houses into top luxury brands? And how can you use the lemon butter test to help you with food and wine pairing? In this episode of the Unreserved Wine Talk podcast, we're carrying on with part 2 of my conversation with Ron Hunt, host of the terrific All About Wine podcast, who is actually interviewing me. Ron is a winemaker, cellar master, vineyardist, and tasting expert. You don't need to have listened to part 1 first before this one, but I hope you'll go back if you missed it after you finish this one. In the show notes, you'll find a full transcript of our conversation, how you can join me in a free online wine and food pairing class, where you can find me on Zoom, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube live video every Wednesday at 7 p.m., including tonight. That's all in the show notes at nataliemclean.com/129. Now, on a personal note, before we dive into the show, I am such a language nerd. I love collecting subject lines. Yes, subject lines of emails. I've got a whole file folder of them. I'm always on the hunt for those that catch my attention amid all the froth of hundreds of emails that I get every day. So here are some of my favorites lately. Blink and you'll miss it. Don't say any of these things. The crush I never got over. I try to pause and think, what is it about this subject line, about these words that made me want to open the email? I think wine labels are like that too, especially when we've never tasted what's inside. I'm wondering if you agree. Let me know. Okay, on with the show.
You mentioned something about the cost of wine, like Domaine Romanée-Conti. Do you really candidly think that the price of some of these wines that are in the thousands of dollars worth it?
Yes and no.
That's always my answer too. Yeah, I know.
Exactly. It depends. So as you know, Ron, like the price of wine is related to the cost of making it only up to a certain point.
Right.
Was the vineyard land expensive because it has a southeast exposure? Did the winemaker cut back the grapes throughout the growing season, so therefore the remaining grapes are fewer, more expensive, but tastier, make better wine? And all of those host of decisions contribute to cost. But after a certain point, I don't know what the cutoff is, but call it even $50 and way up to the thousands. Then you're into the intangibles like scarcity, rarity, the winemaker's ego. Did it go for thousands of dollars at auction? Is it one of the few bottles left of that vintage? So are they worth it? Bottles that are thousands of dollars? It's how you define value for yourself personally. Of course, you have to have the budget, but is the price worth it to you? Some people will pay for designer haute couture clothing because they want that fine Paris stitching. And others don't care if it's a knockoff made in a, T-shirt place or whatever. It's of no value. So it's what is that wine worth to you, and do you find it of value? So that's the yes and no answer.
Along the same line, people have asked me that question, and I always get the same answer, yes and no. One thing I think you have to consider in there, too, is that most people, and I say most people, is that 90% of the people out there that are not super learned in wine, and there's not a slap there, so please, no one take it as it, but the people who aren't super learned is the ones that are listening to this program, listening to your programs, your podcast, all that, to try to educate themselves. These are the majority of people out there. These people would probably not appreciate the $3,000 bottle of wine because of these subtle little differences that has that they haven't really experienced, and they don't know what to look for.
I agree, Ron. And it's not a snobby statement at all. I studied dance for 20 years. I trained as a dancer, as I mentioned. So when I watch like a ballet performance, I enjoy it visually like everyone else. But I have a muscular response, when she does a jeté or a whatever, entrechat, because I've had that training. So it hits me on multiple levels, multiple sensory levels because of my background or education or training. And I think that's there when it comes to wine. You definitely can enjoy it on a surface level, and all the power to you. But there's also a deeper layer of enjoyment if you want it. And it does take work and paying attention to what you're drinking and learning about it.
Yeah, I'm glad you agree with me on that. I tell people that the difference between a $100 bottle of wine and a $500 bottle of wine is there. You can definitely tell the difference if you know what you're looking for. But if you don't, then get that $30 bottle of wine, and you'll enjoy that just as much as the 500. But the more you get educated, the more you start reading stuff, the more you start listening to stuff, and more you start looking for different things, then that helps you understand what you're looking for. And in the long run, it's going to give you a better understanding of the wine and make that $500 bottle of wine.
And with my partner, Miles, we've been together for 8 years now. When I met him, he was drinking very straightforward, shall we say, Australian Shiraz, and that was great. Until one night he noticed I was drinking something else, and he goes, "What's that?" I said, it's a Shiraz, but from the Rhone Valley. Well, I want to try it. And so he quickly abandoned his wine, and he's been more learned and more expensive ever since. But it's been a journey. Well, I used to put out decoy wines. Talk about snobby. It's like, if you don't know what you're drinking, then drink this. But gradually he caught on that there was something different in my glass. And so now he's a very expensive date.
But I have to say my wife is the same way. She was into lighter whites and stuff like that. And when I started to drink more and more reds and all that, when I opened up the winery and the reds we were getting in there, and we brought up some wines from Chile, and particularly Carmenere. And she just fell in love with that Carmenere. And now she's became a advocate of red wines and the Carmeneres, and she's looking for, and she goes, "Are you tasting the pepperiness in this?" Are you? And I'm going,
oh my goodness.
Yeah, those days are gone where you can just have this.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, well, we can always reminisce.
That's right. But it's great. And that's really what we're trying to get people out there to do. I mean, in the food and wine pairings, trying to get them to try something else besides the ones that they pick up on the bottom shelf or next to the bottom shelf. Reach on up to the top 2 tiers and grab one of those.
Exactly. And one of my tips when it comes to food and wine pairing that I meant to mention earlier, but you've brought it up again, is would you normally put butter on your food or squeeze of lemon? So if you normally slather butter on, it's probably a richer dish. So look for a richer wine, whether it's that full-bodied Chardonnay or maybe a Cabernet, if you're slathering butter on your steak. Or if you're going to put a squeeze of lemon on that fish dish, then you're probably looking for something lighter, like a Riesling or a Sauvignon Blanc, something that has that sort of acidity that you would find in that squeeze of lemon. So I call it the butter or lemon test.
That's a good point. Very good point. Because if you think, am I going to put butter on this? No. Well, then don't drink something that's buttery. So, yeah, that's an excellent way to approach it. You mentioned something. Tell us about Merry Widows of Mouse, or is it Mousse?
Mousse, yes. The Merry Widows of Mousse, they're in Red, White, and Drunk all over. So that's champagne. So as you probably know, Ron, Veuve Clicquot, Veuve means widow.
Right.
And so it was the widow Clicquot, but there were a number of widows who built the famous champagne houses, which were at their time France's top luxury brands. And all of them had these compelling stories at the turn of the century. They had lost their husbands to illness or war, and they stepped up to run these large businesses, or actually they built them into large businesses at a time when women weren't running companies. Like Veuve Clicquot was 28 years old when she lost her husband to the Spanish flu. She had an 8-year-old Clementine, and she did amazing things when her domain was invaded. And as the troops were sort of leaving the domain, they were taking some bottles with them, and they were saying, "Madame, get the wine back." And she said, no, they'll be back. They'll have a taste and they'll be back. It was the first sampling program. But she was amazing because during the Napoleonic blockades, no ships were getting through, but she managed to get one ship through with all of her sparkling wine into the court of Russia to celebrate the birth of the new Tsar. And that's how fashions were set back in that day. If they were drinking it in the court, then everybody wanted to drink it. And so her wines became a hit in Russia. And she just had all of these innovations.
Ah, okay. Yeah, I wasn't aware of that story on there. Huh, interesting.
Yeah, and she's also the one who invented riddling. So that process of turning champagne bottles to get the sludge down into the neck of them, it's mechanized these days. But back then, she realized if she could clarify the wine from all the particulate, she would have better sales. And so she took her kitchen table, turned it upside down, and drilled holes into it and put the bottles in their necks because she knew that it would sort of all float down to the neck and she could get it out that way. She invented riddling, clarifying the wine.
Oh, I never knew
giving
that.
up the kitchen table.
I knew about riddling. In fact, I've shared it before. I've talked about it on the show before. And I don't know for sure, but is there any champagne house that still does riddling?
Some of them do, perhaps for their very, very top tier bottles, like Cristal at Louis Roederer. And usually if you go to the champagne houses, they'll have a few little sample riddling racks there, just sort of demonstration riddling. But a lot of it is mechanized because it's, an eighth of a turn of a bottle every, I don't know what it is, 3 days or something. It's a very, very gradual process and very time consuming. And I'm sure they would have all got carpal tunnel syndrome.
Yeah. Full-time job.
A lot of workman's
compensation
claims. It's
interesting, though. It's an interesting aspect of champagne and the riddling and all that. It's something that I've shared with people, and they don't understand about this sediment, and they still, like you say, it's mechanized now and it's still being used, but it's something that needs to be done, and it makes a difference. Really does. Mm-hmm. Have you ever had a guest that you just had information out of them? I mean, it was
like pulling teeth or something, or just It was difficult, you mean, to interview them, and they weren't forthcoming, shall we say?
Yeah, well, I had an interview, and the young man was a nice young man. I talked to him before the show, and he was going to be on the show with me and all that, from a winery. I'm trying to think, the winery was in Kentucky or something. I can't remember exactly where. It wasn't California. It was Kentucky. And I say, do you have your own vineyard? Yes. What do you have planted in your vineyard? Cabernet, Chardonnay, and Riesling. I mean, the interview went this way. He answered the questions and he didn't hesitate, but that's all he did. And usually when you ask somebody a question, they elaborate. They start telling you,
sure.
Do you have a vineyard? Yeah, we have 20 acres of this and we do this, and and they go on. And normally in an interview that lasts an hour, I think I went through the whole winery and all the questions I usually ask and everything in 20 minutes. And Yeah, I was going, well, do you have anything else? He says, no.
Nope. Nope. Okay, bye.
Bye. Yeah, that was it. Well, thank you for being quick. Bye. But I was just wondering, have you ran across interviews like that?
Well, sure. When I was starting out, definitely. I mean, I also host Facebook Live interviews. I've done about 80 of those shows on Facebook Live for the last 3-4 years before starting the podcast. And over time, I started studying people who are great at interviewing, not necessarily wine, like the late, great Larry King. And I mean, there's others like Tim Ferriss is in the business world. I listen to them for their techniques. Like, how do they get to the question after the question? Like, somebody will say something. How do they probe further? How are they getting these great stories out of people? And I started formulating some of my own sort of go-to questions, like, take me to the worst moment of your career. Tell me exactly where you were. How did you feel? I mean, it's not a gotcha interview by any source, because we go to the best moment after that. I'll even tell them, do some thinking on this. Like, I'll let them know I'm going to ask, but don't script it. Let's just make this a conversation. But that's what people want, are the stories. So trying to get away from the yes, no, which is not always easy, but I'm often asking them to paint me a picture and tell me how you were feeling, because that's what we can relate to. What was it like flying that plane over your vineyards? That sort of thing. That's where people connect with how did it feel, and tell me what was going on. What did you see? What were you smelling? What were you hearing? And then we get a little bit more nuance and out of the yes, no, or Cabernet, Chardonnay.
Yeah,
but it's tough. It's tough because not everybody can even get to those stories. But I try to push.
Yeah, and this young man, no matter what I did, it was 1 or 2 word answers, and that was it.
Yeah.
It's just, and I think when I talked to him earlier in the day, well, it was a couple of days before then. When I talked to him then, always when I was talking to wineries a lot, I'd always talk to the people and call them and say, okay, who's going to be on? And I say, I'm not going to give you any surprise questions or gotcha questions. No, we're just going to talk. And he says, okay. And he was very forthright with me and very easy conversationalist and all that. And I think maybe knowing that he was on the air, and it's just like radio fright or something.
He went into presenter mode as opposed to still being conversational. A lot of people do that. Like they'll get stage fright, radio fright or whatever.
And I can understand. I've been on radio programs before, and you sit there and you don't think that, well, X number of people is going to be listening to this. All you think is, well, I'm just talking to this person right next to me, and that's
exactly that's a good thing. And you do this so naturally, Ron, but I think people will open up if you share something about yourself first, because people listen to your show, Ron, and they listen to Unreserved Wine Talk for me, not just for the guests, but to listen to us. And that's not meant in the big ego sense, but you're the continuity factor for your show. And they want to learn more about you as much as they want to learn about the guests. So I find sometimes if I tell my own story, it doesn't have to be something long, but that guests will resonate with that, and it becomes more of a conversation, and they open up. But that's been hard for me because I like to hide behind the questions. I'm an introvert at heart, and I'd rather just go down my list of questions. But yeah, oh yeah.
No, you haven't presented yourself here now. You opened up quite well. Yeah, you have. I mean, you've been a very enjoyable guest tonight because you have opened up and you've told us things about yourself and different stuff that is enjoyable. And that's, I think, is what you're looking for in a guest, someone who knows what they're talking about and shares it, but doesn't dominate. And I think that can be off-putting.
Yeah, exactly. It has to be a give and take, back and forth. And one thing that I used to be afraid of when I started interviewing folks on Facebook and on the podcast was ours can be a very technical field, and there's so many things you can get wrong. And I used to be afraid of looking stupid and thinking people are going to think, well, what does she know? She's been, even after writing about wine for 20 years, she's still getting that appellation wrong. But you have to just forget that and move on because I try to maintain the mindset. I'll always be an enthusiastic amateur. I'm always learning, and correct me, really, if I'm wrong. Like, I'm not going to veer away from a question because I'm afraid that, I'm going to mispronounce something, or I'm going to get the year wrong or something. I'll just say, hey, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was, 1953, whatever, and go for it. But you have to get past your own ego.
I don't worry. I mispronounce regions and names, and I don't know any other language except English. And when you put some of these French places in front of me, or even Spanish or Italian, I pronounce them wrong, and I know I do.
Yep.
And
well, there's so many different languages coming into wine, so of course
I don't worry about it. I just say I'm going to destroy this name, and then I pronounce it the way I'm supposed to. And every once in a while, I say it right.
There you go.
Yeah.
And I think because of that, you make yourself more identifiable. We don't identify with cold, hard perfection. We identify with flaws. That's what we see in other people,
Well,
that's in ourselves.
I'm good at that on names. I tell you. It's unbelievable.
You're keeping it real, Ron.
Yeah, maybe that's it. Mike, do you have any questions for Natalie here?
Hold on a second.
I know Mike's there. See, Mike is always texting, and he's always sending out all sorts of stuff, and he's making notes and doing all sorts of stuff all the time. And so when I ask him, I always catch him off guard, and he's going,
Well, sorry, I just got off of Amazon. Somewhere between March 4th and March 11th, I'll be receiving Red, White, and Drunk all over.
Very good.
That's great.
I read
thank you.
I read the reviews on Amazon, and they're fantastic. 320 pages. I can't wait to get it. I mean, just looking at some of the reviews, it's like, this is going to be great. So I can't wait for that. And after it arrives and I can read it and do a little, this is what I read and all that kind of stuff. But it was great.
Yeah.
And I got the guide that you mentioned earlier, picked that up and looking at that. Very nice. Thank you very much.
Oh,
and
good. Thank you.
No, just enjoying. $397 in Canadian is $314 in US.
Wow,
that's
what a deal.
minus 30%, eh? Yeah, what a deal, huh?
Another yeah, absolutely. Fantastic. So, just enjoying it. And, it's been great. So I can't wait for the book for sure.
Thanks,
Thank
Mike.
you.
That's very kind of you.
Yeah, Mike is my engineer. He's a co-host in engineering. We say something like, I wonder how much that exchange is. And Mike will say, it's $314. He just,
he does mental math. Yeah.
Yes, he does.
That's
great.
Google. Yeah.
His mental Google map.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. That's what we all do.
That's it. Yeah. Thank goodness for the computers. So,
I know.
Well, while we're on the show, when would you like me as a guest?
Oh, whenever you have availability. I space out my guests just so I can research them thoroughly, Ron.
Oh, you don't need to research me. You found everything.
I've been listening to your show, though. Awesome.
This is me.
Yeah, but I'll send you a calendar invite because right now I'm looking kind of at the end of March, early April. But we can pick a day that works for both of us. Yeah, we're on the same time zone, so that's cool.
Yeah, really. Although you're a million miles north in tundra weather. And
yes, here in the snowy north, the Great White North.
The Great White North, yeah. We are blessed down here in Florida. This is nice weather for us right now. This is the time of year when visitors from your area come down here and they go, oh my gosh, this is so beautiful. I love Florida. And then they go home, sell their house and move down here. And then summer comes and they go, oh my gosh, I hate Florida. And, so.
We have gone to Florida every year. We haven't gone this year, sadly.
Really?
But we go to Naples. We love Naples.
Oh, yeah. That's down the coast, Naples, beautiful
love
town.
the beach.
Yeah. It's
the restaurants, everything is so nice.
Yeah. Naples is great for restaurants. Yeah. It's a really nice area. St. Pete Beach was just named by TripAdvisor the #1 beach in America.
Really?
So, that was quite a coup for St. Pete Beach. They were #2 last year, and they were named #1 by TripAdvisor this year. So,
wow! Did they add more sand? How did they climb up there in the rankings?
I think what they did was they take into account traffic and all that stuff. And considering that this last year there was no traffic, it helped boost them up that little extra couple of points they needed to move to number one. So,
well, congrats, St. Pete's.
Yeah, really.
We'll raise a glass.
That's right. We will raise a glass for everything. Good thing for St. Pete Beach, yeah. But we have a lot of nice beaches here, though, so that's just one of many in the area. Like Naples is another. So, Natalie, anything else you'd like to talk about or bring up, or tell us again your website and all the good stuff that everyone can find on that website? And so tell us again about the free guide that you're offering for all About Wine listeners and all that good stuff, if you will.
Thank you, Ron. That's very kind. So I hope everyone will listen to Unreserved Wine Talk podcast, because obviously you're already an audio listener, so I would welcome more ears. As you mentioned, my website is kind of the hub where you'll find everything, nataliemaclean.com. That's NATALIEMACLEAN. And you can get the free guide at nataliemaclean.com/allaboutwine.
See, you get a prize for listening to All About Wine this week. So
there you go.
That's cool. That's cool. So thank you, Natalie. It was
thank you,
very enjoyable. Great conversations, and I'm looking forward to being on your show so we can continue to talk. That's about
exactly. That's what wine does, doesn't it? It brings us together.
This makes
great
us talk.
Conversation.
That's right.
We go down little rabbit holes, and then we come back up, and we go down another one. But no, this has been such a pleasure, Ron. I've really enjoyed chatting with you. And Mike, nice to meet you. And thank you for getting the book. Yeah.
Very enjoyable. Oh, yeah. Can't wait to read it.
Terrific.
Thank you.
Cool.
And I will be emailing you, and we'll get something set up for around the 1st of April. And
sure, that'd be great.
Look forward to being a guest on your program.
All right, Ron. That would be awesome. Look forward to it.
Great.
Have a good night.
Thank you again.
All right. Okay,
Thanks.
cool. Good night for now, and I hope something great's in your glass tonight or this week.
Thank you. You also.
Okay. All right.
Good night.
Cheers.
Cheers. Good night.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, perfect.
What is this caller Mike has dropped? Did you leave me for a while?
I sure did. I was reading the PDF file from her website. I still have it open, actually. The wine and food pairing that you get template. And I was going through that, and all of a sudden, whoop, and I go, oh, don't tell me. I thought you disconnected because I didn't hear anything. And I thought, oh, that's a Ron thing. And no, I looked up and I read the little bar at the top of the studio thing that says Mike power has dropped. No.
Well, see, I wasn't even on the studio. I was on the emails that she sent us, because that's where all the information is and everything. Yep. So I was on that, and I never saw this. And I come back here to the studio, and I'm going, you left me.
No. But we stayed connected to Facebook, and Blog Talk Radio obviously didn't cut out. I don't know. I'm not doing too much. I have a couple of, their website. I was looking up Unreserved Wine Talk. That her podcast, Unreserved Wine Talk, folks, check it out. It's pretty much everywhere. It's on Apple. It's on radio.com. There's mention of it on podnews.net, Stitcher, TuneIn, which is a great app. I listen to a lot of stations on TuneIn, Spotify, Google. I think Google Play has something on there as well. Player.fm, audible.com. She's out there. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
so check it out.
She's a lot of formats. And then if you can't find on any of those other formats too, just go to nataliemaclean.com, and it will connect you to just about everything that she's doing too.
Yeah.
So
there's all kinds of good information on her website for sure. Also, search for her on Amazon. I'm sure she's elsewhere book-wise, but search for her on Amazon, and you'll find her book. She has another one on there, and I was looking into that as well. But I'm going to try this one, and 320 pages. I'm a slow reader, so by 14
July, August,
by 20. Oh no, I'm a real slow reader.
Years or not months? Years.
Oh yeah, I don't know. Yeah. And the photos will keep me going for a long time. If there's any photos or something, I hope not, but it's okay. But they'll extend it more. So I'm like, ooh, pictures, okay.
Ooh, a picture.
Yeah.
How much was
text,
it?
It was cheap for the paperback. I mean, like $5 or something.
Wow.
Not bad at all. 320 pages. And the reviews were fantastic. So I was like, yeah, why not? Sure. I'll do that.
It's in paperback
And
already, too.
she's got another one on there. Let me go
Unquenchable.
back.
That one, I don't know.
Okay.
That's a tipsy quest for the world's best bargain wines. From what she says, she goes into regions and tells you buys from regions, which should be good. I mean, people out there who want to try some Italian wines and find out what the prices are. This would be a good way to approach it here. So, that would be good for that.
Some really good reading out there. So go to Amazon and search for her name, Natalie MacLean, or like Ron said, go to her website. But check the books out. They're very affordable and kind of like a really good read. So check them out.
Yeah, it does. I'm gonna have to visit and grab myself one copy of it too. So very good. Her gift to All About Wine readers too. Y'all can download that. That's a nice little thing. Wine and food pairings. I'm always talking about wine and food pairings. In fact, Jim Laughlin and his books, or his online books, talk a little bit about wine and food pairings. So these are good companion things. I mean, you don't have to be exclusive to one author or something like this. If you put all these together, you can make up yourself a quite comprehensive overview of what you're trying to pair up and all that. I was really impressed, I think, more than anything, about her site. Let me find it here again. Oh, the mobile app, that's something else. If y'all are out shopping for wines and stuff like this is a barcode reader, it's an optical front label scanner. It has notes as a place. You can take notes as a place that you can make a note that, I really love this wine, look for this again, and pull it up and put it in. I mean, it's just a very comprehensive mobile app for you there. So you use Jim McLaughlin's sites and then put it with this, and you're set. You're set for just about anything you want to eat or drink.
Yeah.
This mobile app, this is another, like I said, pair this with the Jim Laughlin's books, and you've got yourself just about everything you need there for wine and food pairings. Good.
Yeah.
Good
stuff. Yeah.
So
again, thanks for being on the show today. We really appreciate it this evening.
Yeah, thank you, Natalie. That was fun. It was interesting. Enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And
we have no guest next week, but we will be back live for the next 2 weeks. We're on at 7 p.m. until the time changes, and then we're on at 7 p.m. after that.
That's right. There you go. Yeah, you got it. We're on at 7 p.m. EDT, and then we're on 7 p.m. EST, Eastern Standard Time, and then after the 14th, we'll be on at 7 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, EDT. So now it's EST, and then it becomes EDT.
Right.
And all the people who are not confused are now.
Right. Which is the intent. We like to confuse everyone. Not about wine, but everything else.
It's about the time. That's one of the easy things to do. So
thank you all for tuning in. Ron will be back next week with some updates, news, and general wine conversation. And thank you for joining us. Have a great week and drink wine. And
drink wine.
Check out our.
Thanks for listening.
Yes. There we go.
This concludes tonight's broadcast of All About Wine with your host, Ron. For show information, links to All About Wine on Twitter and Facebook, or to be a guest on this show, visit the show website at www.allaboutwinebtr.com. Archived shows are available for download on iTunes or on our show page at blogtalkradio.com/allaboutwine. Thank you for listening. Drink responsibly, and we'll see you next time on All About Wine.
Well, there you have it. I hope you enjoyed part 2 of my chat with Ron Hunt. In the show notes, you'll find a link to the full transcript of our conversation, how you can join me in a free online wine and food pairing class, where you can find me on Zoom, Insta, Facebook, and YouTube live video every Wednesday at 7 p.m. That's all in the show notes at nataliemaclean.com/129. You won't want to miss next week when I chat with Zach Gabal, the host and producer of the Vine Pair podcast. Zach is a wine writer, educator, and certified sommelier based in Seattle. He has some terrific tasting tips and stories to share with you. In the meantime, if you missed episode 37, go back and take a listen. I chat with Tilar Mazzio, who wrote a marvelous book about Veuve Clicquot. I'll share a short clip with you now to whet your appetite.
And some girlfriends and I agreed that Veuve Clicquot was our favorite champagne, and so we used to get together and drink a bottle of wine of an evening and have our husbands drive us home. We were talking one day, and I remembered that Veuve in French is widow, and it really started with a question where I said, well, was there really a widow Clicquot? And ended up doing research and found this amazing story about a woman who not only became history's first international businesswoman, but who invented a process, which I know we can talk about a little bit, called remuage, that is still used in the wine industry today. And it was really the thing that moved champagne from being a luxury product that was so expensive that only the kings and queens of France could afford it, to a luxury product that those of us who are lucky of a weekend can take a sip of.
If you liked this episode, please tell one friend about it this week, especially someone you know who'd be interested in the tips that I shared. Thank you for taking the time to join me here. I hope something great is in your glass this week. Perhaps a glass of champagne. You don't want to miss one juicy episode of this podcast, especially the secret, full-bodied bonus episodes that I don't announce on social media. So, subscribe for free now at nataliemclean.com/subscribe. Meet me here next week. Cheers.